Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Metroid Prime. So in this part, we fight a certain icy rock boy. Huzzah!
Another day, another not bounty mission.
Like, want me to get back into the thermal visor, not like my days were.
Oh, this fucking thermal visor.
Please, turn it off. Turn it off.
It reminds me
this
of,
area.
like-
This area is not dark.
It
Turn this shit
reminds
off.
me of like the really bad CRT filters you'll sometimes see in like low budget retro ports.
Like retro ports and stuff like that. Yeah.
Because it doesn't like look the way it's supposed to. It's just blurrier.
I did look into why it is the way it is. I did.
Yeah, go right ahead. What did you find?
I found this was talked by actually one of the system programmers for the original version of this game. According to him, they were using the GameCube's texture environment units and its color lookup table functions, plus a few extra old fixed function pipeline GPU exclusive features. You can't easily replicate them on a modern GPU like the Switch has. So what they've done here is when it switches to thermal, it's likely going to a lower resolution and applying a shit ton of motion blur. And then you do a quick post-proc to change the color.
I wonder if they thought that without the motion blur, it would look too low res.
It might. The reason they
I
likely
think
did that was because
they
they.
tell the resolution goes down actually. When
Yeah, but I think most people would be accepting of it though because you are switching to a visor where your vision is different. You know? But go ahead, too. I'm sorry.
It's all good. The reason they likely dropped the resolution so harshly like this is because of performance reasons.
Most likely, yeah.
Simple as, basically. It's
Which is so strange because like the thermal visor did not do anything to the frame rate
in the original.
or tank anything in GPU in the original, which just goes to show like if you knew what you were doing with the GameCube, that's just work miracles.
I guess it's more that like it doesn't seem like as somebody who doesn't know much tech stuff, it doesn't seem like this should really cause issues because it just kind of changes the colors on stuff to me, you know. But like,
It's a
I
bit
guess,
more
But we can never really know because we're not game devs and we don't know. Someone would pop the hood of a GameCube and we'd say, "Yep, those are pieces of a console. I don't know how they work or what does what."
yeah, but how do they get inside
does.
when it's made out of titanium?
It's like, what, 5 screws to get in, then about 24 screws inside to take it all apart.
Nope, I'm already falling asleep.
That particular hardware generation was very proprietary. Very
yes.
proprietary.
It's as a kid who grew up in the 90s and 2000s, it is baffling to me how similar consoles are now. Where effectively even the Switch, PS5 and Xbox are basically just slightly different gaming PCs that run very similarly, and it's like when how different the consoles were was such a selling point for them in the like N64 and GameCube era, especially. It's bizarre to me to be like, oh yeah, well, this one has Game Pass and this one has Astrobot, and that's the difference.
So do you think? So my question for you guys then would be: do you think they shifted focus away from proprietary stuff in response to just the PC climate changing, or is it because they got tired of it and it's like, no, it's better if we just make it all like synergize as much as we can for the ease of porting?
It would have been for ease of development because they wanted it gentrified simply because it was getting too expensive to develop. It still is too expensive to develop, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And the other problem is, okay, so we've got one car over here that's calling itself an Xbox. Okay, so what does it have? Right, it's PowerPC. Okay, some of us have worked on GameCube. That's fine. Wait, this looks like the cell. Wait, this isn't the cell. The part's been arranged. All right, what's the API for what's the graphics like? Ah, the graphics engine. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. What's the API on it? Ooh, DirectX based. Okay, nice. 9. Okay, what? Whoa, look at this scratch pad here. Look at all this. Oh, we could throw all this free shit on the screen for free. All right, let's have a look at the PS3. Oh, dear.
Oh, that's like one of the biggest discrepancies of recent. I call it recent memory. The PS5. The PS5
It's nearly 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
really old yet?
Don't remind me. But like, that's part of why PS3 versions of so many multi-platform games at that time ran so shit. Is because the PS3 had its weird cell for GPU, however the fuck it's supposed to be.
It's because of that, but it's also because developers were more interested in developing for the Xbox 360, and as a result, they developed for that first and then had to port stuff over, which is considerably harder than just developing for the PS3 to begin with.
Alright, so I'll try and simplify this. So on the Xbox 360, you have effectively a 6-core processor, 3 hyperthreads, 3 physical cores, right?
Yep.
On the PlayStation 3, what the Xbox has 3 of, the PS3 only has 1. That's the power processing element. That is the heart of the cell. And you've got 2 threads on there, tops. Now, that's when it divides into what we call the synergistic processing units. So those are like the proprietary engines that are attached to the main CPU. There's 7 of them. They wanted 8 because of synergy, but it was like, no, it's too expensive.
I remember them promoting the 7, the cores essentially. I remember exactly what the terminology was. But like to me, that shit always just goes over my head. I think they were just banking on bigger number means good.
It wasn't very good at all. Technically, every cell that was made actually has 8 in them. So there are 8
Jesus
present.
Christ.
On PS3, a game has access to 6 of them. The 7th's kept for the kernel and the operating system, and the 8th is disabled. This was so, in case one died, it'd be just like, oh, it's no worries, we could just turn that one off and rearrange one of the others we've got. It's no biggie. On some PS3s, you can reactivate that 8th unit if it is functionally intact. Does it help? No, not really, but it's cool.
I would just like to say there's something very endearing about us talking about system specs over a generation 20 years past while Samus is fighting a giant rock monster.
The funny thing is, this wasn't even supposed to be here. It was originally slated for Magmore.
I bet this guy only has 2 cells in his processing unit.
Oh yeah, he has about like 8. But within those individual cores are 2 phazon cores.
And they each glow up because they're his glowy weak point.
Yeah. Well, he also doesn't believe in thermal paste, so he's overheating.
Yeah.
And that's why he's going to die, because he didn't do his GPU properly. Thanks, Microsoft and Sony.
The bottom line, though, of the whole hardware discrepancy thing is that prior to the PS3 360 generation, companies were much more inclined to experiment with their hardware. Try to create a piece of hardware, a piece of kit that was unique to them and could do exactly what they wanted it to do. And then Microsoft became the top console developer and everything just became a PC. And since they won that console generation, we've been marching to their beat ever since.
I mean, to be fair though, I don't really care that like consoles are not really unique in aspects of what's under the hood, because because if my history of Saturn emulation, PS3 emulation around that era has told me anything, shit's really fucking hard to emulate or port when the architecture is so radically different. If it's homogenized now for the sake of ease of use, I don't care, because it's more about the software for me at the end of the day than it is about the hardware.
I mean, the 6th gen's like the last era where everyone was trying a different approach. Sega mostly went off the shelf.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe 1 or 2 parts, and they were like, okay, we need all the texture memory. We need a shit ton of video memory for this. PlayStation 2 took a look at everyone and went, okay, so they're going that direction. We're going the opposite. But that's what I went, no, fuck it. We are the kings. The peasants will follow. The GameCube kind of evolved to what we sort of use for standard GPUs. Like, this is where they sort of started. Like, if you're an AMD fan. And then Microsoft went, okay, we're just going to take what we know, which is like box standard PC parts. We are going to customize the shit out of them. We're going to add some features with NVIDIA, get some extra parts from Intel. I'm sure it'll go smoothly. Those contracts were not very good at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm with John on this boat, though. It's just like, at this point, I think that part of the reason why hardware is so similar is also, like, a development thing. Like, we live in a world where the people making AAA video games are, like, younger than the people in this commentary. So, like, now we're at the point where people aren't used to like making the hardware as they go. It's just like this is how it's been. This is how they've been making games their whole lives.
You know, if you aren't Capcom, you aren't even using your own in-house engine anymore. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So like why rebuild the wheel, you know, is I think part of the part of the and I mean,
because like that, like listen, it's been a wonderful, funny ass journey for like the last 20 or so years. But god damn it, it's like, if you ask me if I miss it, no. Why? Because even in 2025, when we're telling people what's the best way to play Tales of Symphonia, we still say the fucking GameCube release.
Okay, so part of that's just because of Namco being awful, though. Yeah, like, why can't you just port a 15-year-old game and not fuck with the frame rate? I'm pretty sure...
I have a feeling the original GameCube source might be just lost at this point, so the only one they had lying around was the PS2 version.
Just ask Nintendo, they probably still have it.
Yeah, Nintendo has everything.
But they won't get, like, can you give it here? No.
No, Nintendo kept archives of their lot checks. So that was like every single game that was due for release or to be evaluated were kept in lots. They were kept on Sony News workstations. And those were then further archived, and then they accidentally got leaked about 5 years ago.
Yeah, so, but I'm also thinking, like, when it comes to Tales of Symphonia, I'm pretty sure there's a Steam mod that fixes most of the problems with the official release on that. So, like...
It makes the Steam version more stable. It does not fix the frame rate.
It doesn't fix the frame rate? Okay.
No, it fixes specifically the problems with the PC port, which were more numerous than the PS3 version. So it makes the game stable. It makes it run well, but it does not make it 60. And I would say that's not an issue for an RPG, but it's a Tales of game, so it's an action RPG. So.
Oopsie doodle.
That guy has a lot more health than I remember. Oh, you piece of...
Yeah, Thardus is a bit interesting. He is coded to take more damage from the plasma beam, even if you don't have it yet.
Interesting.
Huh. Yeah, it's a neat little attention to detail if it was intended, because like it's an ice rock monster.
Well, originally he wasn't even supposed to be that. He was supposed to be the boss of Magmore Caverns before they switched it up.
Well, do you think that it'd be still the same like sort of like environment and that sort of shit? No. Because like when I think of Thardus, I think of an ice golem that from Frendrana. Do you think it would have been like more magma based?
Yeah, it would have. I've seen some of the development notes. It was going to be like a big lava-covered arena with a couple of small platforms you would have had to navigate, but I couldn't find any details on the actual fight mechanisms.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it. Fucking Magmore doesn't have a boss, does it?
Nope.
No, Magmore Caverns does not have a boss fight.
I mean, I would say Tallon, but Tallon has met a Ridley by technicality.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that counts.
Okay. Unfortunately, we've encountered one of our first instances of a power-up being utterly nerfed for 3D.
You couldn't have the spider ball work like you did in Metroid 2, unfortunately. I might have just picked something else, personally, but, you know.
You could, but it would take a lot more development time to make it run. I mean, if you
It would also break the game in half if you could climb literally any wall in the game.
Well, I mean, you say that, but we're in a post-Breath of the Wild world. And Daggerfall already did that like 20 goddamn years ago. So, you know, it's not impossible. It's just difficult to design for.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no stamina.
I think in this case it'd be too difficult to design for. Because you'd have to, like, if you didn't absolutely want to break every fucking piece of geometry in half with, like, the smallest of crevices because you can climb any wall at any time with a spider ball, you have to consider that for every room in every area of the game.
Yeah, it probably adds a ton of dev work to make the game.
Oh, it will. But, John, to counterpoint this, I present to you NTSC 1.0. Walls are but a wall of suggestions.
Yeah, but that's not intended, though.
Yeah, the casual gamer will not find that. If the casual gamer gets a spider ball, they're going to go to town.
It's not as if when you get the space jukes, the power-up prop says you can now jump on anything.
Although I swear to God, the spider ball in this game looks like a yo-yo.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
I love the spider ball design in this because it looks like a yo-yo.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of, those translucent yo-yos that were in the style it became in the 2000s.
Duncan yo-yos.
Dude, I loved those stupid things when I was... Is that a missile expansion or a light hanging from the ceiling?
It'll be a grapple point.
I mean, this very same generation gave us Spider-Man games that were, renowned for their explorative freedom. It's not a question of whether it could have been technically done. It is a question of how it would affect the design. The more freedom you give the player, the more work you have to do to make that freedom into an interesting gameplay experience.
You have to keep that freedom controlled for the sake of progression. And I think it would add too much dev time for one power up specifically, especially because we're just talking Spider Ball here.
Also, it's like Metroidvanias and sandboxes have very different design philosophies as well.
Yes. In 2D Metroid, the thing that was limiting your ability to use stuff like the space jump and the spider ball was the two-dimensional orientation of the gameplay.
Because when I think of, to go back to the original topic, if Spider Ball could let you do anything, rooms like this couldn't exist.
Yeah. Because
it has an open ceiling. That's because what's stopping you from going above the mountain range and hitting a boundary box, or worse, an invisible wall? Because to me, an invisible wall is a sign that you should have probably better designed the geometry of the area better. Because it's so artificial.
In some games, I'm more forgiving of them. Metroid Prime, I think it would feel worse in Metroid Prime, given that Metroid Prime is a game that thrives on immersion and feeling like you're in the area.
Yeah, it thrives on making you feel free, more so than actually being free, if that makes sense. I mean, the linearity to openness ratio varies from game to game, but there is always some structure to where you can go and how you can get there. So, it's an illusion as much as it is genuine freedom, and that's important to these kind of games.
Yeah, typically Metroids are more linear than Castlevanias a lot of the time. Once you get into the mid-game, especially. There's very few instances in Metroids after, the first one, where you can just, pick between two areas and then complete them out at will, whereas in Castlevania, it's just okay, you can do the ballroom or the chapel, and it doesn't really matter which one you do first. Or you can just skip one and just keep on going. That's more of a Castlevania thing than a Metroid thing. It's funny or
if it's the original Metroid, you can just clip in through a door and basically walk through any wall you fancy.
I mean, I would rather do that and skip the whole game than playing the original Metroid because Christ,
just don't turn the game on in that case.
It's not even there's two things about the original Metroid. One, it's jank as fuck. I get that it's a game from 1986. And it was groundbreaking. I get it. That game is one of the worst aged games on the NES, I think, maybe. Also, I know that there's a much better version of the same game right over there on my Game Boy Advance. I could be playing that. Why am I not playing that?
You could play the original Famicom Disk System release, which is actually harder than the NES one in many aspects.
They made it hard. It's harder. That game's bullshit already. What about it's harder?
Well, here's the pro. You can save.
Okay.
The original Metroid Famicom Disk that has save. The downside is Torian, which has a lot of slowdown on the NES version. Yeah, that's not there on Famicom Disk.
Okay. So
slowdown makes it easier. So it's easier to hit shit. It is easier to survive. On Famicom Disk, you gotta lock the fuck in.
Yeah. What did they change? What about it's more difficult on that version?
The lack of lag.
Yeah,
okay. Sorry, that I'm my brain defaults to less lag equal good, but I'm thinking.
I keep forgetting that the American NES and the Japanese Famicom were actually different in terms of hardware specs.
No, they're actually purely identical. The only difference is how the expansion pins are arranged, and the presence of a lockout chip. That's it.
I thought we were going to go back to the proprietary tangent we had earlier. It's are you telling me even Nintendo was dealing with their own bullshit?
Also, some sound stuff.
Because that would have been the RAM adapter on the Famicom Disk System that had additional sound channels on it.
Yep.
Well, along with extra RAM. Like, the actual disk drive itself doesn't have any hardware. It's that adapter that sat on top that was the brains of it all.
Man, if we're going to talk about proprietary stupid hardware, Nintendo in the 80s was king of stupid proprietary hardware.
Oh, no. Something funny, right, with the disk system. It's just the Mitsumi Quick Disk drive. So they were, like, pretty standard in Japan for the time. They're, like, small 3-inch floppy disks. Yeah, if you had a hole punch, you could bypass Nintendo's copy protection. It was that easy.
I love the stupid-ass ways to get around copy protection that exists. It's like, okay, you've got this Japanese N64 game. I'm just going to unscrew this WWE 1999 game that cost me $1 at a yard sale. I'm going to put the back on that. Cool, I can play Animal Crossing on the N64.
So if you take this cotton swab and tickle the 64 in the N64 logo, it allows you to play PlayStation 2 games.
I mean, if you want to talk crazy hacks, there was the kamikaze hack on the Xbox 360 on some of the DVD drive versions where you literally took a drill bit to the hardware to just do just enough damage to overwrite the firmware, because you basically had to change it from lock to key.
What does that do?
It unlocks the firmware, which means you can overwrite it. You can overwrite the firmware. Yeah, you can run any disk you want. Signed? Yeah, I don't care.
You know what?
Were you trying to say something, Lewis?
My favorite form of copy protection is, hands down, the stuff that old PC games used to do. Because their form of copy protection wasn't to prevent you from copying or running copy disks or anything like that. No, they just said, go to page 94, line 3, and tell me what information is in the manual.
What does it say? Or the little scroll wheels you had to decipher a code on.
Or they would give you code wheels in the box. Yeah.
Please.
That was strictly an anti-piracy measure, right?
Yeah.
I believe.
Yes.
As a kid, my bread and butter back when I was a wee one, y'all were playing video games. No, my bread and butter was actually defeating those copyright systems. The amount of death threats developers used to leave us back there. Oh, I could spin some yarns about that.
Of course, literally the moment the early internet happened, people people were able to share that information very freely. So
you didn't even need the internet.
BBS.
If you had a floppy disk, you could just straight up copy the whole game from DOS onto a floppy disk.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, though, because they couldn't and didn't they didn't stop you from copying things. They put a pop quiz 10 minutes into the game that forced you to check the manual or use a code wheel to enter in some information, and if you couldn't answer the question properly, the game would just not let you play.
Man, I love playing video games, having a good time, and then everybody says, okay, fine, pop quiz, everybody. Let's go. Open book test.
It could have been worse. It could have been cassette tapes, because that's what we had to use in the UK back then.
Oh, Jesus.
These stories and more in the next part of Metroid Prime.